Burkina Faso has been in the news recently due to its activities toward France. The relationship between the two countries has been strained, and Burkina Faso has been asserting its independence and challenging French influence. Ibrahim Traore has been landing blows on France in various ways, both politically and diplomatically. France's continued influence hampered Burkina Faso's ability to fully exercise its sovereignty and pursue its own development agenda. But things are now changing, as Ibrahim Traore wants nothing to do with the French. In recent events, Burkina Faso has accused France of destabilization in complicity with Benin and Ivory Coast. So in today's video, we will be unfolding this story to you, connecting the dots. But before we begin, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the new Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload interesting videos like this. Burkina Faso's military leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore, said last week that he has evidence of destabilization orchestrated against his country by France and supported by Benin and Ivory Coast. Traore said in an interview in Ouagadougou, the nation's capital, that he had nothing against the Ivorian people, but did have something against those who run Ivory Coast. "We say it, and we'll say it again," he continued. The president of the West African country in transition since the September 2022 coup said he had a problem with the policies of Benin and Ivory Coast leaders. Traore said no one could tell him that in Benin there were no French bases directed against Burkina Faso. He went further to say that they had evidence at hand. He said evidence will be revealed that Benin is home to 2 French bases directed against Burkina Faso. "We have proof. Tracks have been laid, soldiers are equipped," he stressed. The military violated bilateral and military agreements with France after seizing power, claiming that the country's neighbor was not only trying to destabilize the country, but had also failed to combat terrorism. Traore claimed to have audio recordings of French agents in Benin, who play at the terrorist centers of operations and set up operations with Beninese and help them to look after themselves. However, the French military explicitly denied the presence of military sites in Benin in a statement provided last week. The only permanent military personnel are the defense attaché and the cooperants seconded to the Europe and Foreign Affairs Ministry, added the statement. According to the statement, France maintains bases in Chad, Senegal, Gabon, Djibouti, and the Ivory Coast. Occasionally, temporary and short-term operational training detachments are deployed to support the Beninese armed forces at their request, it added. Take note that France also denied similar allegations in May. Bear in mind that following military takeovers, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have united to establish an alliance where anti-French sentiment is on the rise and diplomatic ties with France are essentially non-existent. This opinion is also supported by the citizens of these nations, who have frequently expressed it in sizable protests demanding that France leave. It has become the popular phrase of the moment, even in Libreville, Gabon's rather francophone capital. French, go home. On January 28, thousands of people gathered at Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, to celebrate the French government's announcement that it was pulling out its troops stationed in the West African nation since 2018. The celebrations coincided with a massive public uprising in France the same day, as millions of French citizens rallied across the country to protest the Macron government's pension reform plans and a growing cost of living crisis. On the continent, French policies, described as neo-colonial, are being challenged with slogans and placards by the youth, plagued by poverty and poor employment prospects for decades. They demand a fairer new model of cooperation and respect for African nations' sovereignty. This distaste has recently increased, especially in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso, where more youthful leaders are now willing to reject agreements with France publicly. They believe that such arrangements do not serve the interests of their countries. The current leaders in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea have not experienced colonization or the independence period, so they have no complex. It is a generation that demands to deal on equal footing with the former colonizer. For many, the departure of the French military forces is a step towards the restoration of the economic and political sovereignty of these nations. The other main issue that sparks anger in the region is monetary. This is the sensitive subject of the franc CFA, a currency inherited from the colonial era and currently used in 14 countries of the continent. For many years, a debate has been going on in Africa on whether an African currency should replace the franc CFA. Indeed, many consider that the currency inherited from the colonial era hinders the ability of African countries to control their economy and develop autonomously. This is why Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso want a monetary alliance. On 11 February this year, the head of Niger's ruling military junta, General Abderrahmane Tiani, spoke of the possible creation of a common currency with Burkina Faso and Mali. The currency is a first step toward breaking free from the legacy of colonization, he said on national TV, referring to the CFA franc inherited from French colonization. Although there are risks associated with this project, there may be multiple benefits. Expanding the monetary zone can promote better resource allocation and increased trade integration. It might improve the nation's flexibility when interacting with outside partners. These three nations might gain a great deal from monetary union membership in the form of enhanced trade integration, independence from outside partners, cheaper transaction costs, and investment appeal. However, there are risks associated with this attempt as well, especially given their standing in the West African Economic and Monetary Union and ECOWAS. The latter may see the introduction of a new currency as a challenge to their dominance in the area. It might lead to the disintegration of current economic blocs. Furthermore, the three nations' exit may make the West African Economic and Monetary Union and ECOWAS less powerful in terms of their combined political and economic clout. One thing is clear, these countries will keep doing whatever it takes to break all ties with France. They will keep landing the French with blows. Bear in mind that in April, Burkina Faso's military leaders expelled 3 French diplomats, accusing them of subversive activities. France said there were no grounds to expel the diplomats. These expulsions were one of the latest signs of worsening relations between the two nations since Captain Ibrahim Traore seized power. The French government took note of the legal proceedings, but rejected accusations that these technicians were sent to Burkina Faso for reasons other than their computer maintenance work. The French Consulate General requested their return to France without delay. International human rights organizations have criticized Burkina Faso's military leaders for suppressing free expression and intimidating opponents, while it tries to handle a security crisis brought on by terrorists associated with the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Several French media outlets, notably Le Monde and Radio France Internationale, have also been suspended by Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso has made a noticeable step closer to Russia as part of its aim to broaden its alliances. In February, Traore suspended the issuance of export permits for artisanal and semi-mechanized gold and other precious commodities with immediate effect. Artisanal miners typically sell their gold directly to local traders or middlemen. These local traders or middlemen must have been selling the gold to the French. Things have changed in Burkina Faso and people are beginning to feel it. Russian flags continue to show up during anti-French demonstrations. Moscow is seen as a friend in Ouagadougou, a time when Vladimir Putin, who has been re-elected for a 5th term as leader of Russia, is no longer welcomed in many parts of the world. People in Burkina Faso are tired of French politics, which is why Russia is popular there now. It was apparent to the Russians that France had handled its turn with Africa badly and had reached a nation that is currently going through a divorce from France. Russia is gaining crucial diplomatic clout in Burkina Faso by shifting its position in regions that have historically been Western bastions. The best part is that it can accomplish this for a lower cost. It is no news that Burkina Faso, along with Mali and Niger, have been battling an Islamist insurgency over the years. Burkina Faso is plagued by violence the same as Mali. Only around 60% of the nation is under the jurisdiction of its government, and the violence is still growing. Similar to Mali, the country's relations with France deteriorated as a result of back-to-back coups in 2022. In Ouagadougou, anti-French sentiment is likewise deeply ingrained, and demonstrations against Paris are frequent there. Younger people have grown more disgusted with the established political class throughout much of West and Central Africa, even with those who have been duly elected to government. The past few years have seen a lot of talk about Africa's resurgence. If this is the case, then its people must take the initiative and set the agenda rather than waiting for orders or guidance from other countries. If this doesn't happen, Africa might still rise, but only for those with specific goals in mind for the continent. The question that this raises for other young Africans is, what is their agenda, and how are they influencing it? While pondering on this question, let us know your thoughts in the comments below regarding the destabilization Ibrahim Traore is accusing the French. Are Benin and Ivory Coast really involved? Also, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you in our next video.